What's happening, guys? Average Joe of Average Joe's Cigars, and coming at you with another review. Tonight, I have something extremely special and elusive, if you will, in my little travel humidor here. Let's go ahead and bust it out. Tonight, it will be the Fuente Fuente OpusX. This is the perfecXion number 5. Been trying to get my hands on one of these guys in terms of the OpusX in general for a second. Not the easiest to come by. So I am very excited to share this with you guys. The number 5, perfecXion, is in particular something that stood out to me, and I'm really happy I got my hands on one of these guys in particular because it is a 4 7/8 inch 40 ring gauge. This is more of, for sure, it is definitely a full-bodied cigar, and for me, in terms of ring gauge and for just how full-bodied it is said to be, this is the absolute perfect size. It is a Maduro wrapper, but the wrapper was grown with a Cuban seed in the Dominican Republic. The binder and filler, also Dominican Republic. A little backstory on the OpusX. It was basically said to Carlito Fuente at some point that he was never going to produce a great cigar because he, in a sense, manufactured them. And he took this as a personal challenge. And it was kind of widespread across the cigar world at that time that really there was no shot you were going to grow a world-class wrapper leaf in the Dominican. And again, he took that as a challenge, and thus was the beginning of the creation of the OpusX. So I think it's pretty cool because he chose the name Opus. I forget what it's derived from, but in its original root word, its definition is something like life's work or life's project, something of that nature. So I think that's pretty cool. And he got the X, I feel like, because he started this as Project X. Kind of called it Project X because it seemed like everything was going against him and he was trying to prove the world wrong, and he did, in a sense. Again, this is a full-bodied cigar, a slim gauge, petite size. It's actually a petite Corona. Let's pull it out of the cellophane here. Wow, yeah, this is a beautiful cigar. Looks like a triple cap. This is gorgeous. You see the band is quite a bit different from the typical Arturo Fuente band. There is a wide variety in terms of the OpusX line, but they're all pretty elusive, and there's only a select amount of basically the whole variety. So to be fortunate enough to have one of these guys tonight, I'm, again, really excited to share this with you guys. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Something like this, I'm going to go with the guillotine tonight. Just gorgeous. All right. Let's get active. Wow. Wow. Man, there's a lot going on. This is a very refined, complex scent. Man, leathery, rich, tad bit of pepper, cedary, woodsy kind of. Wow, that's just a beautiful, beautiful smell that comes from this. All right, here we go. Man, again, such a complex, wow. Yeah, definitely that cedary, woodsy kind of taste, but very creamy and smooth. A hint of pepper. I want to say some spice comes through right away. Yeah, there's that kind of leathery, rich, but at the same time, very smooth and creamy. Wow. Man, this is something else. For me personally, this is actually my first OpusX. I was genuinely attracted to the ring gauge and the size of this. Kind of had the knowledge going in that it was full-bodied. So for my first one, this is something I definitely wanted to try. I really like the elegance of this size. It's not really a common size. But again, the level of complexity in the flavors that are coming off this thing is remarkable. There's that bit of pepper, cocoa-y. Man, there's so much going on here. This is something else. Yeah, almost like a tartness that comes through at the end. When I say spice, I almost want to say like a tad bit of a citrus kind of taste that comes off this thing. Man, I'm gonna let this thing start kicking here. And just a couple things that I wanted to touch on that I was kind of thinking about is, for most people that are beginner cigar smokers, this is something that they probably will not know. So I feel like it's something that should be touched on. But something that I kind of learned, I don't want to say the hard way, because I've had a pleasant experience all the way through for the most part when it comes to cigars. But something I kind of figured out for myself was, it does matter what you smoke at what time of day. When I say that, what I mean is, this isn't something that I would smoke personally right out of bed or right after breakfast with a cup of coffee. I'm going to tend to lean towards a more mild, really mild in nature cigar that really pairs well with coffee. Usually a Connecticut wrapper, Ecuadorian Connecticut, pairs really well with a cup of coffee in the morning. This is more of a after dinner, my palate's been peppered with different tastes and flavors all day. And it's really, to me, primed and ready for something of this nature. This would be a lot for your palate right out of bed, for sure. It's a lot on your palate anyways. This thing is, wow, this is a spectacular flavor that's coming off this thing. I kid you not, man. Cocoa, spice, cedar, very creamy, a little bit of leather, that rich leather kind of. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this band off because it's begging for me to. But yeah, so it really does depend what time of day it is, what type of cigar you should really go for. I feel like people don't realize that until they experience it for themselves. When I first started smoking cigars and I really hadn't honed in the way I drew the cigar, the way I retrohaled, really the refinement of the flavors, I wasn't getting the whole experience. It didn't make the world a difference, but I did notice the difference. And where I noticed it was, man, those cigars are real harsh. And then I thought about, well, when am I smoking them? In the morning. Well, then I tried those same cigars later in the afternoon or at night after dinner, and what do you know? Those cigars weren't harsh or as harsh. Or the technique maybe with how I was smoking them, maybe it was too rapid and I was burning my tongue a little bit. Regardless, this is definitely a late afternoon, after dinner, late night kind of cigar for sure. There's a lot going on. For the most part, I do like to kind of stick with, I tend to lean more towards a Connecticut, some of that nature. Every once in a while, I will go for like a Candela Fuente kind of in the morning, but that's a flavor that I enjoy at any time really throughout the day. It just kind of depends on what mood I'm in and where my palate's at that moment. With that being said, I encourage you guys to really find what it is your taste is. I don't know if you guys have kind of figured it out. It's tough to gauge because some stuff I'm reviewing just for the sake of review because I feel like this particular cigar deserves a review. But I definitely have a certain taste. I do like my Connecticut. I have been fond of the Cameroon wrapper lately. That's another thing that's grown on me a lot. But later in the evening at night, I do like my Maduros and kind of my more full-bodied and heavier cigars. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, because I even found when I got my first humidor, it wasn't easy to find tips or directions or really solid information on how to season the humidor. Anybody who's partaking in the world of cigars on a, I'd say, weekly basis should have a humidor. There's really no excuse. And I say that because your average cigar, again, I'm in California, is gonna be probably about $8 to $10 at minimum, maybe 7, 6 if you're really lucky. But regardless, a good wooden Spanish cedar humidor can run anywhere from as low as $25, $30 up to, we can go up forever depending on what you're looking for and what your price limit is. But at $30, it is something you should have in your stowaway there just to store your cigars, because these things deserve to be stored properly. They will dry out fairly quickly if they're not. And even to try to bring something like that back from the dead once it is dry is not the easiest and won't always work for you, even if you do have a humidor. But just to throw out there, like this little travel case I got here, my girlfriend ordered this for me, just kind of on a whim. She saw it and she liked the look of it. And this was actually, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe $12.99. And I've got to say, this thing works great. I love this thing, man. I've always got 4 or 5 different cigars in here for the day, or kind of what I'm into or what I'm planning on smoking for that day. But it does keep, and it just sits between 70 and 75% humidity for me, just like I like it. And it was very easy to season. So, seasoning. To me, there's really only one way to season your humidor, whether it be something like that, a little travel guy. You notice that that was wood, Spanish cedar on the inside. That's one thing I would make sure of. It's just tested over time and proves to be, time and time again, it proves to be the best with the cigars in terms of the moisture and the humidity. Now, when you get your humidor, it's very important that it is seasoned and seasoned properly, because if not, it can have drastic results for your cigars, and we don't want that. It's just throwing money away. But the first thing I would do when I have a humidor show up is, or when I get it home, is I would take, and this is very important, a bottle of distilled water. I always have a gallon sitting in my cabinet where my humidor is. It must be distilled because there is no minerals, no chemicals that are going to affect the humidification process or the flavor of the cigars. So you can't just grab a bottle of Crystal Light or whatever out of the fridge. That's not going to work. It's going to affect them negatively. So first things first, you're going to get a rag and you are going to soak that in distilled water. And then you're going to just wipe along the raw wood on the inside of your humidor. And when I say raw wood, I just mean any kind of sort of wood that's exposed. You're going to get all the creases, all the nooks and crannies, and you want that to kind of start to darken in color. If it's not darkening after you wipe it a bit, keep wiping it a little bit. You want it to kind of saturate a bit, because if it doesn't, what's going to happen is you're going to put 5, 10, 15, 100 cigars in there, and you're going to be all excited the next day to pop them out and see what kind of pristine condition they're in, and they are going to be bone dry. Because in fact, the wood is going to take the moisture from the cigars and draw it back into itself. Therefore, we have to moisturize that wood so it doesn't need it. So once it changes colors, you're probably good and ready. I like to then soak my actual humidor, which is this smaller, usually typically looks like this. It's a smaller plastic piece. And what I'll do with this is I'll flip it to where the vents are face down, and I will soak it in that distilled water for a few minutes, pull it out, wipe off that excess water, and pop it in the humidor. Then from there, now certain people may differ when it comes to this. From there, I'm going to give it about 24 to 48 hours with no cigars in it. Some people, they'll pop their cigars in there right away. The only reason I don't recommend that is because I have seen a few of my own humidors, the gauge jump and the humidity go to 80, 85, 90 for a while, and then kind of settle its way back in between 75 and 65. And you don't really want your cigars in there when it's over humidified. That can cause just as many problems as if it's under humidified. So yeah, that's another thing. Just make sure that you wipe down all that raw wood on the inside. Make sure it's in a sense calibrated to where you want it to be, and then you should have absolutely no problem. I just wanted to get that out there because I feel like, again, when I got my first humidor, I can recall looking online and trying to figure out how to season it and just having a tough time. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and maybe if it's going to help somebody out there, great. Those cocoa notes and that kind of tartness are playing off each other really well with this thing. And I will note that it seems to me that the slim gauge size on this really allows this particular cigar to showcase the taste of this wrapper. That's something that I'm noticing in a big way here. The wrapper is, to me at least, the alluring part of the whole story, because there was a big contradiction surrounding it and nobody really, in a sense, thought it could be done. And I will say Carlito Fuente was a trailblazer in that sense, and he proved everyone wrong. But just the idea that the wrapper is being showcased so well in this ring gauge and this size, I honest to God can't imagine this in any other size or fashion. This is really beautifully put together, I will say. As far as the draw goes, it's absolutely beautiful. You can see the burn is pretty damn even. To me, this is a very well constructed, beautiful after dinner celebratory. This one's probably gonna run you, I wanna say, up north of 35, 40, 45 bucks. I cannot tell you for sure because this was actually gifted to me by a close friend at the cigar lounge that I frequent. But I definitely encourage you guys, if you want to go out on a whim and spend a little bit of coin and you can find one of these, definitely go for it and try the OpusX. This is a treat, that's for sure. Very solid, firm cigar. Not a very soft cigar. Again, I like my humidor at about 73.45. I like it up there. And usually, for the most part, the cigars will come out a little bit softer. But this is a very firm cigar. There's not a blemish on it. The roll job is absolutely perfect. And again, the flavors are coming together so nicely. Starting to get towards the last part of that first third of this guy. And I'm almost starting to detect a little bit of sweetness starting to come into play. So there's definitely a little bit of a profile tasting note change here going into the second third. Wow. Yeah, hats off to Carlito Fuente. This is an absolutely beautiful, well-rounded, full-bodied after-dinner cigar. I am going to dim the lights, enjoy the rest of this sucker, and have a great rest of the night. God bless, guys.